No, I'm in Loughborough. I'm in Loughborough.
Okay.
Finishing up the final year of my masters. So yeah, it's Loughborough's a bit different to London side and everything like that. But it's been alright to be fair. I'm looking forward to getting into the studio in London when that's all set up. Because I don't know, I like work from home, but I don't know if it's for me exactly. Like, what about you? Is it you like prefer work from home, or is it like more of an office kind of vibe?
I was definitely previously in the camp where I much preferred the office and the atmosphere as the office. And
Yeah,
um, so when the pandemic first hit and we all went fully remote, then that was definitely a struggle for me, like many people. And I think
yeah,
we all had to adjust to working from home. Um, and I think that it took at least 6 to 9 months for me to really find my feet in that sense and find a rhythm and a space where I was comfortable to work and um, get used to the quiet. Because when you're in the middle of a busy office, 20 or 30 people, then there's a certain amount of kind of ambient noise and kind of energy, and you feed off of that. And I think that was the biggest adjustment, at least from my point of view. Um, but now, having worked remotely for a couple of years, it would be difficult to go back. I enjoy the space that I have and the time that I have and the balance. And I think now I'm actually more productive from home than I ever was in the office. So yeah,
yeah. That's interesting to be fair. Like, I can sort of get that because there's like, although there's, I guess you have more distractions. Some would say at home, but you don't really have the distractions of like hustle and bustle and other people when you're in the office space. So I can understand how being at home might be more like relaxing. I found actually like streaming everything. So we've been doing quite a it's kind of different compared to how normal game dev or like dev in general operates. We do a very like transparent and open kind of development style. So your traditional games like your Rockstar, your EA, all those games will kind of like they wait to like E3 or something like special release launch to tell you about any game they released and try and they do it kind of the way of like build up hype and then maybe drop maybe a couple hints and then they'll actually announce the game and then they'll be so and so far in development or like coming in 2024 or something. Whereas because this has been it's very like much a community project, like you need the funding from the backers and everything like that. It's kind of a we decided to go with a very like, transparent and open, like everyone can see like what we're working on, when we're working on it, how we're doing things, how we're approaching it. So we stream all our I stream pretty much every time I'm working on programming. I just stream what I do, and then people would just sort of like a chat where people are chatting to you while you're working and whatnot. But one thing I found is like you can't really procrastinate because there's like people watching you, and like even if there's like only one or two people, you still feel bad because people can like watch you procrastinate. I don't know. It's weird to say because it's like if I was on my phone per se while I'm working, it's awkward to be like streaming whilst on your phone because you're not like engaging with them. So it
yeah,
causes me like if I stream for like 4 or 5 hours, I'll just be like fully engrossed, just like chatting to people whilst also working rather than like being distracted around the thing. So no, it's weird. I do find working from home is actually has its benefits. I've been enjoying it to be fair. It's been nice.
no, I like that strategy. That keeps you disciplined.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And it's fun because I don't know, like programming and all this stuff can be quite a at times quite lonely. Where like if you're like in your doing your own thing, like if you're not working with someone else, quite a very like long lonely thing. So it's weird like having people in the chat like doing their own thing. We have one of the backers, Noma. He's the PhD student, and he'll
yeah.
jump in every time I'm streaming, pretty much. And he's working on his PhD whilst I'm working on the thing. And you just don't feel as alone. You feel like, yeah. And no, it's nice to be fair. I'd never really seen anyone adopt that kind of style. Um, but I find it works quite well. To be fair, it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Anyway, we'll give it like 5-10 more minutes before we before we get into everything, because that's what I did say would start at that point. So the crux of people probably join.
Yeah,
Um,
all good. So how's your brother? How's he doing?
yeah, he's doing good. He's doing good. He's had a kid.
Really?
Yeah, he's had a
Well,
kid.
I need to message him.
Yeah, he's had a kid. little boy. I went out to see him when a month or two ago, just before Christmas or
Yeah.
just after. Maybe just not. I can't even remember, but just before actually. See him and his now fiance. Um, but yeah, they're good. Berlin. He's become a true true Berliner now. Living
Yeah.
life. I'm trying to think. What year was it when he worked for you? Well, I'm trying to maybe like 2015 or something. I can't even remember.
It was 2016, 2017.
Oh yeah. No, it's funny to see like how he's developed as a person like over time. It's crazy. Completely so more outgoing and sociable. Like I remember when I was him growing up. Um, but no, it's interesting. Like just moving. I know when he initially said he was going to move out, it was kind of like, oh, whoa, just up and change your life across. But obviously it did worked out quite well now. You know, he's working in UI and UX design and all that stuff. Which was that what he was doing with you? I believe like was it like UI and
Yeah, he
UX kind of?
started as an intern, and he impressed so much that we kept him on beyond that, and he was really good. He was very much liked in the office, producing good work. And then one day he asked me for a meeting, and I thought, oh, this is a perfect opportunity. I'm gonna give him a pay rise and put him on a new contract. And then he told me he's leaving. I was devastated.
Oh, just out of nowhere, just like yeah, I'm
I
going to a
know.
different country.
Like, yeah, I'm going. I've got this dream. I said,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
cool.
go
But
for it.
it's interesting because he didn't start off in that avenue, did he? Like he got a business law degree,
Yeah.
and then was it with you that was his first like job or internship in that UX UI field? I'm pretty sure.
I think
Um,
he had a few pieces that he'd put together in his kind of personal time, and I could see that he had a lot of potential. He had a good eye, and he was publishing those to some. I think there was a platform called Dribble back then, and that's where his the body of his work was. And we just gave him a chance based on that. Actually, I think I gave him an art test. I gave him an art test to design something, and what he sent back was really good, and he got the job on the back of that. But yeah, I think working at Neutral was his first professional job as a UI UX artist.
yeah, it's crazy to think like. Obviously, I know there's this whole big. I always say to my friends like we go to university to like kind of like find out what we want to do, but it's not necessarily what we're going to end up working as. Like I always use him as a great example. Like he did business law and he was always like pretty entrepreneurial. Like he had a couple businesses when he was younger. We were in North London and but then he was always he liked drawing. He drew a lot of manga. And I remember like I don't know. I remember when he started being in his room, like seeing him put together the pieces that you say and like working in like Unity and Unreal and just like messing around with the different things and like putting together designs. And I was confused because I was like, what's this guy who has a business law degree doing drawing? Like, shouldn't you be reading books or like? Do you know what I mean I didn't know, but it turns out like yeah, that's when I realized that university doesn't necessarily define the path you have to go down. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that like without a degree in say UI or UX or that kind of field, like he still was able to like get a job with you guys. Is that something that you're not exclusively looking for, like a degree, or is it?
Not only us, I think the most of the industry. I think it's formal qualifications aren't really that relevant in this space, and
Yeah,
you can definitely find opportunities and progress just based on the quality of your portfolio and the quality of your work and what you can prove you can do.
yeah,
So yeah, I rarely look at formal qualifications. They often help further up the chain with the management roles, but definitely with UI and UX, if you can prove you can do something and you have a body of work,
yeah,
then that's normally enough.
yeah. That's that's interesting to me. Like when I was like, yeah, like I mean, even with this job I have now, although I guess I'm in the field with computer science and programming and everything, but in regards to like game design and things like that, I hadn't had much experience. But
Yeah,
Dado, who is like the head guy, created studio and everything, he was kind of seeing like when I was speaking to him, it was more so looking for like a type of person like that would fit the culture and like be into that kind of thing, rather than because it's also something that you can learn. Like a lot of aspects of it, you can learn. Like if you have that programming foundation, like I knew Python well and all that stuff. Like the game dev and game programming aspects is quite you can learn that. but the kind of person you are, like whether or not you're willing to like want to learn or things like that, it's almost like more important in that sense. But I
Yeah.
know it's cool to see that that's not the be all and end all if you don't have the right degree.
Yeah, the person, not the skills. You know, skills come into it, obviously, but
Yeah,
the person has to be a good fit.
yeah, 100% agree. Um, okay, let's get into it anyway. To start the main crux of it all. I've just got like a couple pointers here anyway, just things I want to touch on. Being that you're, but like, yeah. So Adam, if you just like, for those of us that don't know, if you just like introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, what Neutral Digital is, that kind of thing. And yeah.
Sure. Okay. So my name is Adam Randall, co-founder and COO of Neutral Digital. Neutral Digital has been founded around about 20 years now, and originally as an architectural animation studio, which means we had the typical pre-rendered pipeline, maintaining a big render farm, which was super annoying. And that worked really well for 10, 12 years. And we had a good business working with a lot of extremely talented architects and developers. And then in around 2012-ish time, we decided to do a kind of mini pivot, and we embraced and adopted many of the game engines. So back then we were experimenting with Unity, Unreal, CryEngine, and we decided to also move away from architecture to a certain degree and towards travel and mobility. And we found some opportunities within aviation. And we started working with a lot of airlines initially on in-flight entertainment systems. So we were doing the UI, UX for the entertainment systems and a little bit of development. And we were working with a lot of companies internationally. And we really enjoyed that work. And we decided that that's the area where we wanted to push the business. So we did so. So for the following 10 years, that's the space that predominantly we operated in. And then along came lots of other enhancements and developments, and one being VR headsets. So the Oculus came along, and that was a big game changer for us because we decided that was definitely a piece of tech and a medium that we wanted to utilize. So we started offering a lot of VR experiences, tools, and that worked really well for us. So for anyone who's checked out our website, neutral.digital, you'll see various pieces of work for British Airways, Air Canada, Cathay Pacific, very fun pieces of VR work to help those airlines market their products in a very kind of cool, immersive way. And then, let's say, beginning of the pandemic, things changed again a little bit because airlines stopped flying. So they also stopped spending. So we kind of did a mini pivot back to architecture, and we started offering the same tools and experiences that we were developing for aviation to our property clients, which meant that they were able to sell units, apartments, commercial spaces in a virtual way. And that was extremely valuable for them. And it became a really important part of the business for us over the pandemic period that kept us afloat. And then just recently, airlines have started to come back again now. So we're starting to working on a few pieces for a few airlines that are planning a really exciting 2022. And we also have this other part of the business, which we grew up during the pandemic. So we're growing again now, which is great. So we have two really strong parts of the business. We're developing some new products. And now we're fully remote. So pre-pandemic, we were a studio of 25, 30 people in East London on Columbia Road, a really cool space. And then from one day to the next, we went fully remote. And initially it was that was temporary. It was always supposed to be temporary. But actually what we found is that we were quite productive and it was quite effective. And the balance really worked. So at the moment, there's no concrete plans to go back to a central fixed office location. There may be some satellite offices where we meet for creative sessions, and that might happen this year. And they might be spread in those key locations for us. One is London, one is Hamburg. But yeah, the team now is so mixed and so spread. So we have people in Mexico and Canada, in Central Europe, in Eastern Europe, and we really enjoy that.
I find that's interesting. Like you said, fully remote. Like, so I wasn't even expecting that. Like I knew, you saying earlier before, for guys, me and Adam were chatting just a bit before the stream started. Hey guys, hey Noma, how you guys doing? So fully remote. It's almost like that's. I'm yet to like see many companies that adopt that style. How do you find collaboration works in that sense? Because I can imagine it's probably harder to work with someone and like collaborate with someone where they're not like right next to you. You can just like look at their screen, they can look at yours. Like, so how do you like overcome that? Or you clearly found a way to work. Like, how does it work with you guys?
We're quite lucky because we have a lot of legacy, and a lot of the core team work together for a very long period of time. So, the core management team, the core creative team have worked together in the same space for 5 or 10 years. So we understand the way each other work and think. So then switching to remote wasn't such a radical adjustment. And we use tools like Google Meets, Slack, and we have daily stand-ups, and we have weekly breakout sessions. And we found that that's worked quite well. It is difficult to be creative remotely. So that is tricky. There's no replacement for all being in the same space with a whiteboard, with some sticky notes and a lot of felt tip pens. But you can mitigate it to a certain degree, and we've managed to do that. What works extremely well remotely is development work. So even pre-pandemic, we had a development team that were mostly working remotely. And developers are a strange breed anyway. They normally sit in dark spaces with headphones on. And
Yeah,
for 8
very
hours
true.
straight. And it works fine for them. There was no adjustment for those guys.
I can vouch for that. It's weird. Like me and Dada's probably spent like 90% of the time from like we work most probably from like 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. just in darkness, listening to lo-fi music with headphones on. So I can vouch for that for sure. But that's cool. Like when you explain it, makes sense. I do find actually, yeah, like that element of development is actually like most of the development is done. I would say remotely in a sense, but like you're never really physically file sharing or like working on that kind of thing. Like, already we use like GitHub as like the main source for code sharing and code working together. So that's all in a sense remotely done anyway. So the only difference really is being able to speak to each other face to face, which like you said, like we use Discord as our primary probably too, but I guess like with Slack and Google Meet, like you kind of do overcome that. And you were saying before, you don't now at this point you don't really miss it too much, do you? The whole be in person kind of thing.
I don't miss sitting on a tube and a train for 1.5 hours a day.
Oh yeah, true. Because you were coming from near me, weren't you?
Yeah.
That Wolfen side, yeah.
I'm commuting from Watford into central London.
Yeah, I bet you don't miss. Yeah, to be fair.
Miss, no. So yeah, I say 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Just traveling.
So that's productive, more productivity straight away actually. So that's interesting. Do you think this is something that, like obviously, like post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, this was never really like, well, some companies probably adopted it, especially if you had teams all over the world. But like post-pandemic, do you think this is something like more teams are likely to adopt, like a fully remote kind of like workflow? Or
maybe not fully remote. There's definitely going to be a hybrid model, I would suspect, for businesses like ours, I suspect. And there's certain pieces which you can operate and manage remotely. But I think that there's always going to need to be that kind of on-site creative element.
Yeah.
And I think most companies are still just figuring that out. We are, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you. So obviously you said like Neutral Digital, like you kind of initially it was about architectural like animations and create experiences at that, and then it kind of shifted into aviation. Because I've seen some of the awesome stuff you did with like British Airways and Qatar Airlines. Like if you guys haven't seen it, check it out, like Neutral.digital. They made some like really cool like 3D and like immersive experiences where you can like basically be in like first class and then sort of check out that whole kind of thing. So if you've not seen it, check it out. What was the inspiration? Because you're a founder of this, so you haven't come on, you created this yourself. What was the inspiration to be like, okay, this is what we want to create, and this is like, where did you see a market for it? Were you like, I there's nothing like this really exists, or was it like, I enjoy the animation and 3D side of like development. This is something I want to go into. Like, how did it all come about?
I think that my co-founder Christian, he has a background in architecture. So the original guise of the business was very much formed around his passion, which was architecture. And I came into the business a little bit later. And then the move to travel and mobility. I think the studio was traveling a lot, and there was lots of observations. And one of the observations was that in-flight entertainment is quite bad, and it was an area we thought we could help. So we made a call to a particular airline, and we said, we fly you regularly. We think your entertainment system could be improved. Could you include us in the next pitch? And just so happened later on that year, they had a pitch to appoint a new agency to help them redesign their in-flight entertainment system. We won that pitch. And that was our kind of first foot into that space. And I think it just snowballed from there. Through working with that particular airline, we started working with one of the suppliers of the hardware, which sits on board. That company is Panasonic Avionics, and they supply the majority of airlines with their hardware. So we started working with Panasonic Avionics. And something interesting happened in that relationship is once a year they have an event, and it's in California. It's called Apex, and they have a big booth there. And they'd always annex off a part of the booth, and it was called the cool room. And within the cool room, they would project 2, 3, 4 years ahead and try and give their airline customers kind of a view or a vision of what the future might look like within travel and mobility, kind of in that passenger journey. And because of who they were able to get access to a lot of hardware that didn't hit the consumers for another 2 or 3 years. So we had our hands on things like the Leap motion sensor, Oculus headsets, AR headsets, like a good 1 or 2 years ahead of their launch. And we were tasked with putting something together within this cool room that would kind of wow and excite and give those airlines a view of what the future might look like. So it's kind of like Panasonic's kind of mini offshore R&D lab. And it was great because essentially we had a blank canvas and a blank check just to do something cool. Like, here's a VR headset, here's a blank canvas, here's a check. We'll see you in 6 months, make something cool for us. And that was basically the brief every year. And so much innovation and IP came out of those experiments that we were then able to productize, but also kind of feed other parts of the business. So I guess that was the big kind of moving point for us.
Original 9 VP virtual production has a question. Has Neutral Digital done any like experiences based on movie IPs? Yeah.
No, not yet. We don't typically work in kind of movies or in that space. Unfortunately, I'd love to.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Do you think that's like because that's quite interesting. Do you think like teasers and all that kind of thing, like for movies? Do you think that's an avenue that definitely could be explored?
At the moment, I think we're too busy with the activities that we're working on. But you'll know yourself, it's that whole industry is kind of shifting towards virtual production, and Unreal Engine in particular has become a really important tool in facilitating that. Yeah. I'm not sure that's a space that we're going to move into. I think there's already so many huge and super talented studios in London that are already working on those problems. Yeah. Framestore being one of them.
Yeah, no, like Unreal's done some. I mean, we'll go straight into it because I was gonna ask this later, but it's really cool. Like, so Adam and Neutral, they also work using Unreal for a lot of these 3D experiences, as we do here on the sleeve. The stuff going on with Unreal. First of all, what are your thoughts with this UE5? I'm presuming you guys do work with UE5 now, and what are your thoughts on like Nanite, Lumen, the advancements, and what does that mean? Or what could it mean necessarily for the experiences and the content you guys produce going forward?
So yeah, UE5 looks very exciting. There's definitely some developments, some new tools there that are going to help our workflow and what we do. At the moment, we are still working almost exclusively within 4.27. And that's predominantly because we have so much templating and IP that's built around the old platform, which forms the basis of every new project that we build. But once UE5 is fully released, I think we'll start making that move over to the new platform and kind of utilize all of the benefits of it.
Yeah, no, it's we moved over to UE5 because we're quite an early point in our dev cycle. We had done a lot to create a map and everything, like set up the multiplayer and things like in UE4. And yeah, it was working well. Like I got used to the template and everything. And we kind of made the decision. That was like, I think it's best to move now because by the time we get to everyone in and we're like deep in our workflow, UE5 would probably have been released. And it was like, do you do you take it now and deal with the bugs and things not working and having to learn the system and a lack of support and all that now, or stay with UE4 and then 2 years down the line have to do that big old switch, which was, yeah, I mean, we chose to go with UE5, which, I mean, to be fair, like obviously we're not uh, putting anything in production yet, but it's been good so far. Like Lumen has been my best friend. Not having to build lighting every single time I move an object in a level has been. I've never been so happy about it. But no,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. Did you see the Matrix? The Matrix
So the
demo
Matrix
they put?
trailer, yeah, it looked really cool.
Yeah, it
And
looked really
and
cool.
in
Yeah.
particular, what Unreal are doing with metahumans is
Oh,
pretty amazing.
yeah, it's like I don't even know why I did it. I knew something like that would come out, but the access to creators, I just didn't expect it to be so like you can so freely and so easily like access this creative power. It's actually unprecedented. Like I don't necessarily do all the design side of that, but some people like seeing what they've done, making. So we do this to like it's called You in the Game, where backers can like your subscription level and your character can be in the game. And so one of the guys, he's like meta-humaning all the backers that paid for that, and to put them in the game and then seeing the character there, you're like, wow, this is so impressive. But it's I don't know, it's crazy. Like when I saw the Matrix trailer, the first thing I thought was like that they do like Unreal do really good like cinematic gameplay. So you feel like you're watching a movie, but you're playing it. And I was like, it's
Yeah.
like they just it's absolutely amazing. Like that the car chase scene. I was like, that's immaculate. But MetaHumans, I don't know, it just looks so. In my head, I was like, oh, who needs actors anymore? Like really, I was like, what's the point of them? Because I don't know, it just looks amazing. It looks so cool. But I don't know. It's then there's as more I learn about it, like speaking to data, like looking at like memory optimization, like computation size, like how big is it to have all this like make everything nanite, like can everyone run it and all this stuff. Obviously, there comes the limitations of it and whatnot, but it definitely seems cool. And seems like something that could push the industry a bit further, really. Yeah, is a lot of your work predominantly blueprint or predominantly code based?
I would say 90% blueprint.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's a few particular or special things that sometimes you need to do in C++,
Mm.
but blueprints are um, so powerful now that you can pretty much do anything with them.
Yeah.
Um, and that it's almost just as efficient as a C++. So yeah,
Yeah. I just I can't I like blueprints, I do. So we have one of the backers actually Guns who does some work in Unreal as well. We always make fun of him for using blueprints. Because his thing it just looks so messy. Now I am not against blueprints. Like, obviously like some aspects of it, so like the anim blueprints and things like that you have are exclusively blueprint. So I work in it and I enjoy it. Like you said, the power blueprints have now is like I'm pretty sure you could make an entire game like almost in just blueprints, like how good it is now. Um, but do you find like I don't know, like when you're trying to scale things, blueprint becomes difficult. Like I find having a lot of classes, a lot of like variables, a lot of like gameplay factors, like trying to represent that in all blueprint. I don't know, for me, I don't know. It's weird. It's more difficult to visualize than in code.
yeah, I'm not a developer, so I'm not going to be able to comment too much on that, or at least my answer is not going to be too deep. But I think that at least for what we do, where the deployment pool is relatively small in comparison to a AAA game.
Yeah.
I think that Blueprint serves our purpose. Like it gives us the scale that we need, which is on the kind of hundreds, maybe like a few thousand at best. We're not deploying to millions of people. So yeah.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that's something to think about, actually. Yeah, scale would kind of impact that. So, like, I mean, I guess I'm going to go into VR. So, like you said, VR's been around for a little bit now, like the Oculus Go, Oculus Rift. I think, are they on the Quest 2? That's the latest one. I'm not too sure. Like, what do you think VR is the next big thing? Or like, I know it's already, I try to think the Gartner cycle where it was kind of peaked already. Do you think there's more to come from VR, or do you think it's already at its limit right now?
I think we're just at the start, and nowhere near the limits of what's achievable. I think if you think back to where we were just 5 years ago with like DK1, Oculus, and what we were able to achieve in terms of with the engines, and you couple that with how quickly the GPU space has moved, and the difference between like a 980, which was just a few years ago, and what we have now with like the 3090 Ti's in terms of like computing power.
I wish I could find one.
And that's if you can find one. And if things continue to progress at that speed, and UE5 becomes UE6, like you can only imagine what the future holds. And we have metahumans now, which are almost indistinguishable from real life actors. So we're already at that limit or that point. So I'm really excited to see the future, and I think a big part of that could be cloud computing. So I guess eventually the computing power will be taken away from the headsets. It'll be in the cloud, and it'll be streamed down. The pixels will be streamed down, and then there'll be no more barriers.
Do you think there's any physical limitations to VR? Like, do you think like having a virtual headset like presents problems in that sense?
Well, we already have inside-out tracking, and I think the current generation of headsets will just continue to get smaller and smaller. And once you can remove the need to have the onboard computation systems, and you can stream that, then you can make them more heat efficient, which means they get lighter, they get smaller. I'm pretty sure we're going to see other players enter the space with maybe not VR headsets, maybe they're going to be mixed reality headsets. We've been waiting for Apple's headset for a number of years now. I'm pretty sure they're going to enter the space at some point, but you have some pretty cool stuff happening over at Vario as well. So yeah, the future's exciting, the future's bright, and I think this is just the start.
No, it's interesting. VR, because obviously there's a lot of noise going on at the moment, like with Facebook's metaverse, Meta, and everything like that. What are your thoughts on that space? Because I know from the outside looking in, it seems like VR Facebook, pretty much. I know they're presenting it as this whole new reality, new world, but it just seems like Facebook on VR. From my perspective, like, what are your thoughts on the whole thing, kind of what it means?
Yeah, at the moment it seems a little bit shallow, and let's hope it's not just Facebook in VR, and it becomes something a lot bigger and a lot brighter than that, and with slightly more depth. But I think again, this is just the start, and I think we're going to see lots of companies wanting to either build their own metaverses or onboard to other platforms. I'm guessing the biggest platform is going to be the Facebook platform. They are the owners of the headset. They are at the moment pumping the most money into making this work. And Mark Zuckerberg has an ambition to put a VR headset in every home, and I would bet against him.
Yeah, it's true. He's done all right so far. There's not much. Yeah. Do you think this shift towards the whole a fully digital age? Do you think that's healthy? Do you think it's good for like humans in like a broader scope of speaking, like everything shifting towards a more like digital world? Do you think that's good? That's beneficial to us as society?
I think it has its positives and its negatives. There's certainly some trade-offs, and we all are aware of those. this new generation of kids that are maybe too glued to their phones and social media and have short attention spans. And that's definitely one of the trade-offs. I'm a bit old school, a lot older than you, so I used to have to go to the library to find my data, my information. It wasn't even internet back then.
Yeah.
Certainly not like phones or VR headsets. So the world is completely different. But as a parent, I'm embracing that new technology. So I have a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they are fully fluent in VR, and we embrace that. And there's lots of really really cool experiences, which can help and enrich their education and their lives. And I'll mention a few of them, like National Geographic VR, for instance, absolutely amazing experience. Works on the Quest, so it's fully mobile, and has been around for a number of years. And my little one used to love that, even when he was like a lot younger, like 4 years old. He used to pop that headset on. I used to let him kayak through Antarctica and take pictures of penguins. Yeah, and it was great fun. And I used to take him into the office when he was younger, a bit of a work experience. And your brother will tell you some of these stories as well, because I'm pretty sure he was around when little Rohan was running around the office with a VR headset on. He becomes so proficient in VR that he was testing a lot of the experiences that we were shipping out to airlines.
Oh wow!
He was learning to fly a plane, or to serve food in economy class. Yeah. There's certainly lots of amazing educational experiences available, which are all really really positive.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like the educational aspect. When I was doing my project last year, for my third year, that was like the main, like in terms of like backing up and like why I was doing it and trying to like support it. That was the main avenue, which I was like, this is a benefit for it. For those of you who don't know, like, last year I made, for my final year, third year project at university, I made like similar to what sort of Adam does, like a VR experience for like passengers going through airports and learning to the in-flight safety briefing and checking in and checking out of luggage. And the idea was to make it a mobile VR thing that you could watch before you went to the airport, so you were fully prepped and all that. So it's like a whole educational experience thing. And Adam was actually the one that recommended Unreal to me, which has worked out quite well in the end. So yeah, because I was initially going to go with Unity, because my university they just don't use Unreal. Like Unreal just isn't not a single thing here, and they just do only Unity.
Okay.
And so to be fair, like when I was making that, it was quite difficult because I had no support from any of the lecturers or supervisors, because none of them worked in Unreal. So all my support was like online. So thank God for like Stack Overflow and forums and everything like that, because there was no like really in-person support in that regard. But yeah, I don't recommend, like, check out Unreal. It's like the blueprint functionality is really good and all that stuff. So I checked it out, and lo and behold, it was the one. But no, yeah, like when I was researching it, it seemed like there's a lot of information, a lot of like studies about virtual reality and like its impact on like memory retention and like information recall. And it's like actually shown through study to like improve how you not only remember information, but like your ability to recall that information. So it's interesting saying how, like, I mean, first of all, it's impressive that like kids these days are like, their ability, like their cognitive ability, like especially when it comes to like technology, is crazy. Like how 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds can play games and use computers, it's unreal. Yeah, no, my shout out to Stack Overflow. Every programmer's dream. But yeah, it's unreal how talented they are in regards to like their technological ability. But yeah, like it is a crazily like good educational resource, that I'd be surprised if, like going along with the lines of how talented and how intuitive these are for kids, like how well they pick it up, like schools and especially like secondary schools and things don't adopt that as like a teaching tool, especially if you're saying like devices become cheaper and smaller and lighter. Yeah, it definitely seems like an avenue that would definitely progress. So that's definitely cool.
Yeah.
Okay, like Similar online, I will drag you too long. It's always been an hour, where you have other busy things to crack on with. But similar to the whole metaverse thing, what are your thoughts on? First of all, say what are your thoughts on NFTs and this whole explosion of buying NFTs, trading NFTs, investing in NFTs? Like, what are your thoughts on what they are and on them in general?
I never saw this coming. I was quite an early adopter of crypto and quite interested in that space. And NFTs first come along, and I was maybe didn't give it the attention or the focus that it deserved, and I slightly dismissed it. And how quickly it's grown and absolutely exploded is absolutely amazing. And there's certainly a lot of amazing work being created and published in that space, and lots of people earning lots of money as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of a mechanism, it kind of completely makes sense. Like it's kind of obvious that digital art was going to find its kind of home on the blockchain, and it's the perfect way to secure and validate the authenticity of something, which was almost impossible before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this again, it's another space that's only going to grow, I think.
Yeah, so it's weird because like I've like basically like, played games a lot growing up, like this whole like collectors and collectible thing. This was like never new to me. Like I remember playing games like CS:GO or I used to play like Dungeon Defenders on Xbox and whatnot. You could like get items, and then this could literally like translate across to like real world value. I think there's a game called EVE Online. I don't know if you've heard of it, but this literally like operates like a real life system. Like ships are worth thousands of pounds in the game, like in real life. So like the whole like digital like thing being worth like money in real life, and like well, like for me, I wasn't like super surprised because I was like, oh, well, like this is similar to stuff like CS:GO and these skins and collectibles and all that. So like, and you know, what I mean, I've partook in that kind of environment. Like I've played games where I've had collectors things and sold them on, like even made money from it and done that like continuously. So I was like, oh well, yeah, this is something that I've seen, I've done myself, like this, because it make like initially you're like, why would anyone care about skin? But then you're like, well, I've played games where I'm like, I want to have a skin, like, and you know what I mean. The only place where I'm like, is like obviously the skins that's not because they're stored like centrally. Those skins weren't like ever reproducible. Like I could never have like in the game, or at least in that virtual universe, like I wouldn't see other people with the skin. Now with like, the only thing that bothers me about digital art, I feel like a sense that it's gone away from the art itself and just to the monetary value of the art. So like when I see people talking about like NFTs, which are really just the receipt for the art that you've paid for and own and whatnot, I don't see a sense of it's about the art rather than it's about the hype and just owning and saying you own this and this is going to appreciate and value. Like I see people that don't appreciate art necessarily, but are just investors being in the space, and I don't know if that's necessarily beneficial to like for artists and things. I don't know.
But that's the same for traditional art as well, is that
yeah, true.
I see what you mean about the creation of the art, that maybe the intention or the passion to create an artistic piece isn't the core motivation when the publishing platform is digital and it's an NFT, and maybe the motivation might have switched slightly to kind of monetary value of it rather than the artistic value of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm curious to see where it goes. Honestly, like next like 5 years or so, I wonder where this whole space will be with the metaverse. But I guess again like with technology as it advances, like we look back 10 years from now, which is it's crazy that's only 2012. 10 years ago, like where we are now, like I mean, look at video games and compare the state they are then. To where they like 10 years, like where they are now. Like I would never have thought we'd be at the state of, I thought we'd be somewhere, but metahumans were like, oh no way you'd have life like characters in games in 2012, like no chance. And now we're like, oh man, in 10 years' time, you could. I think literally it will be, like you said, indistinguishable from any actor. Um, which I guess comes into a point of where does that line? Where do you draw that line between tech and like real life? Like, is there a line in which we need? I don't. Do we draw a line where like okay, tech can't cross this barrier? Because another thing that with NFTs as well is like generative art. So artists, it's not even about really artists. They don't need artists. Like we're writing art, creating art with code and algorithms. So like, do you think there's a line that needs to be drawn between the digital, like using tech for everything, or is it just it's open season? Like tech is gonna take over if you either get on the train or you get left behind.
Art is subjective. Whatever you find beautiful,
Beautiful.
whatever you're willing to pay for that beauty is completely up to you. And that's the beauty of art, right?
Yeah,
Is that I can be staring at something and saying and completely not understand it and think
yeah,
like, what is the point of that? And you can be staring at it and think, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
yeah.
I'm going to spend all of my salary on this. And that's what I love about art. And that's what's great about art.
Beyond art, do you think like say like so let's teaching and educational resources?
Yeah.
Do you think like these virtual experiences and all that could take away the need for maybe going to places like this, like actually visiting these places? Because as these experiences become more like these 3D creations become more and more realistic, I guess the need for the physical access and physical accessibility kind of decreases. Like if you can have, like, same with teaching, if you can have access to one singular teacher, and you can like we look at Zoom classes and everything, like what would normally require 10 teachers for a class of 300, one person can have that, and there's no limitations of space of room and things like that. So do you think there's a point at which technology, because I definitely like jobs and things will change and shift and be taken over by tech, like um that's without a doubt, but do you think there's a point at which we maybe have to say, okay, hold on, let's not push it too far?
Yeah. That's a tricky one. And that kind of probably also moves into the realm of what's a kind of ethical realm. And when you start talking about AI, and Elon Musk talks a lot about this, how we need to be careful what we wish for, in a sense.
Yeah,
Um, but in terms of the reach of VR and what industries it's going to revolutionize, it's definitely going to be a huge help within education. It's going to help democratize education and give you access to the best tutors in a very personal but virtual way. And that's going to be amazing. And it's going to do the same for um, other industries, like medicine, for instance, give you access to the best doctors in the world virtually for your consultation. Maybe surgeries will be done remotely in the future through VR. They've already been done through kind of robotics assistants already. And definitely training. And training is probably is the early adopter and the area where VR has a really obvious and positive use case, uh, especially for particularly dangerous or very physical jobs. So, for instance, we're working with a number of airlines on training experiences for them to be able to ship newly onboarded cabin crew a VR headset, a $300 VR headset, and that particular cabin crew then becomes an expert and extremely familiar with a particular plane, an A350, a 787. How does the seat work? How does the entertainment system reset? How do I swap out a seat cushion? Where is the galley? What are the pieces in the gallery? They can become almost an expert within a week on a VR headset, which means when they're brought into the physical facility or the real plane, there's very little time they need to spend there before they're ready and they're accomplished and they're qualified. And if airlines can minimize the time that you need to spend on board a grounded airplane or within a physical environment, they're saving huge amounts on training those individuals. Um, and that's something that we're working on at the moment with a number of airlines. And I just see that area growing massively in the upcoming years.
yeah, no, like 100%. Like you said, like especially for risky jobs, like when I was doing my research, these are all things that like I found. I was like, damn, this is VR is awesome. Like, I was like, oh, it's cool. Like, I've used the VR device, but my perception of it was like kind of limited to gaming because that's like, I mean, really, that in terms of like a societal thing, like in media, like that's really what you'll see it as. It's like VR Spider-Man, all that kind of thing. But when you actually like dive into it, and you're like, okay, what is the like real like like useful like use case of these things? Like you said, like I mean, one was like reproducing scenarios that are otherwise impossible to train people in. So like fire emergencies, like you're not gonna send a firefighter into a fire to train him for a fire. It's like, whereas like now it's like, well, I can anything that's risky or dangerous or will put the trainee's life to risk. Like BP did was it BP or something like that, Shell or something that did like a reactor emergency kind of thing where they could simulate a reactor going like reactor emergency, and so people could actually like practice that. And obviously you're not going to put the reactor into an emergency state to train people on that, and otherwise it's something often that you can tell people about it, like what to do, but they're not really going to have that same, like they can't feel that adrenaline, feel that sense of like, oh, I've got to do this with that time pressure. So yeah, no, the VR in terms of like you said, training and education, I agree with you there. It's definitely the future, like 100%. Pete from the chat said he's just seen the Ballymore Riverscape project. I've seen that too. That's really cool as well. If any of you haven't seen that, check out the website again and just some of the stuff they do. He says, are tools like this like still novel? Are they still new when it comes to like the sales? When you're talking about sales or trying to sell like a project, I think it means from like the design architecture side, like they're trying to push a project or something to someone else and use your tool. Like, is that still like novel in that conversation? And do you think they would like completely replace like physical models and physical scale models for like all development projects?
I think real estate architecture historically has been a slow adopter of new technology, and they're very precious about their kind of legacy sales material, and that will be a big physical model of development, and that would be a very nicely designed and printed brochure. But what we're seeing, and what definitely the pandemic helped accelerate, is the adoption of more immersive sales tools and techniques that don't require people to be physically present within a marketing suite. And you can give a potential buyer a virtual walkthrough of an apartment and allow them to customize that apartment, or give them even a screen-based one-to-one presentation where you're using something like a cloud streaming platform like, I don't know, Furious, to show them or walk them through a screen-based 3D experience, which highlights the neighborhood, the private gardens, the building. And those tools have been really, really popular with our real estate clients, and in particular Ballymore. They've embraced this technology, and it's been wonderful to work with them since 2017. It was the first project that your brother worked on with us. So
Awesome, yeah.
yeah,
It's weird. It's weird to think that there hasn't been this massive like adoption from that. Like you said, like they're a bit protective of it, because I would think like the experience like this, like VR and like you said, 3D experiences can provide compared to like the traditional what they traditionally use, is like you can like the experience like it's unmatched really, like in terms of like a physical model to try and showcase like the life and like because like 3D experiences feel just so much more alive than any like drawing or the experience. Like when we're working on the game, something in Unreal that's really cool. For those of you that haven't checked out, it's called Take Recorder in UE5. And you can like basically record an actor in the level and then extract the animation from that and then assign it to any actor. So if you wanted to like basically walk through an environment, you could like play that, do it through, and then make an actor do that, and you could follow it around. But this is like for setting up like NPCs and like characters and actors, and you could do all that. There's all the blueprint stuff to set that up. But in terms of making an area or like for architecture in particular, real estate feel alive and like to try and reproduce that sense of, okay, what will this actually be like when it's made? Because obviously you can see a model and be like, oh, this is a building and there's a stick figure of a person and yeah, man, it looks nice. But like to actually see like functioning like cars driving around, like people playing in the park and all that things, like I'm surprised that there hasn't been a massive like, oh no, this is the future. Let's drop what we're doing now. Forget about this. Let's jump on this. Like it's interesting. Why do you think that is? Is it that they're just protective of what they've made, or?
I think it's a lot to do with demographics. I think that the types of people that are buying properties now are your generation, your age, and I'm never going to be able to sell a £500,000 apartment to you just using a brochure and a physical model. Like this new generation demand more innovative ways of experiencing and more kind of immersive ways. It's an appreciation for a more digital sales journey. And I think a lot of the people that are working in a lot of these development companies are a little bit old school. So yeah, that it takes time to convince them that they no longer need to spend £150,000 on a physical model that looks stunning, clad in brass, but still has like stick trees.
Jumps around. Yeah, no, it's true.
And that can be replaced with something that's completely virtual, 3D, immersive. You can explore every nook, cranny, and corner in like hyper detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, it's cool. I'm excited. If anyone else in the stream has any other questions, we'll do another maybe like 5 more minutes, and then we'll let Adam crack on with important work rather than take all his day. So yeah, we'll do another 5 or so minutes. If you have any final questions that you ask Adam, just stick them in the chat. But yeah, I guess really my last question to you is like, where do you see Neutral Digital and the VR and dev space in general, like in 10 years time? Like what do you see you guys doing? Or is it something that you're like, I honestly don't know. It depends on technology and like where it would take us, because it seems like you've adapted, like obviously like you started off with architectural animation, then to aviation, then to real estate and those things, and like you've adapted kind of with the time and with society, and how if you're very agile in that sense, like what is the need rises, or like where the space is, you kind of adapted to that. Where do you see Neutral Digital and that field really in 10 years time?
Yeah, short answer is I don't know. I think if like 10 years ago, I don't think I could have predicted where we are right now. A lot of that was driven by huge anomalies and unknowns, like the pandemic has accelerated a lot of what we do. And where we'll be in 10 years, I think we touched upon it a little bit, but I think we'll see mediums like VR and kind of mixed reality be adopted in the more professional environments. Not just, they're not just toys, they're not just for games, but actually these are professional tools and platforms that can be utilized to train, to drive entertainment, to make education more fun, more effective. And I think we'll just see that kind of grow and grow over the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. Nice. Sounds cool. I'm excited. I'm excited to see. Do you think, like, in terms of teaching, do you think there's more of a shift towards like, because I guess it is the case now, like more kids getting into tech. Is that something you've seen with your kids? Because I guess there's two sides to it. With the more digital we become, the more people that are into the whole like influencer and Instagram, YouTube, like kind of that's an aspiration. But you also think there'll be like similarly a rise in people wanting to be developers and programmers and animators, that kind of thing.
I think so. I think a lot of traditional jobs are going to disappear. But a lot of jobs that don't yet exist are going to appear. And we might see more people moving into tech, into programming, into art. And that's exciting. Let's see. I have 2 little ones, and I have no idea what they're going to be, or what the world's going to be, or what jobs are going to be available when they're your age, and that's really exciting. If I had to guess, maybe tech like their dad.
Yeah, I would have put money that your little one is going to be on VR. If he was running around with it in 4 and testing out your things, there's a strong chance there.
Maybe one of them. One of them's already programming in Scratch and is
that's how it started for me, honestly.
He's 6, and this weekend he was telling me to review his algorithm.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta watch out. These guys are coming for for all our
Oh,
jobs. Yeah.
the
No.
blueprints, they're coming for you.
Yeah. Honestly. No. But yeah. No. It's been an hour. But this has been awesome, Adam. I don't want to keep you for too long. I know you're a busy man. Um. But no, I've really enjoyed it. Just chatting about. Yeah. For me, it's just I just have a lot of questions that I'm curious about. It's good to ask someone that is like knows a lot about the field that is in it. But yeah, thank you again for joining. And hopefully, do this again at some point when in a year or so, or later in the year. Or, again, we'll see where Neutral Digital is, and
That'll be
maybe
fun, yeah.
another pandemic. We'll see how we're now working like in person again, or I don't know what happens. But yeah, no, it'll be fun to do this again. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.
No, thank you. This has been really fun.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
Cheers, guys, for watching. I'm gonna put because I know let's be honest, most of you guys ain't gonna watch an hour-long video again, start to finish if you weren't here for the whole thing. So I'll edit today and put out a 10 to 15 minute video of just of all the best bits, minus all my waffle and just Adam stuff basically. So all the interesting factual stuff. And I'll put on the channel even today or tomorrow. So thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you again, Adam, for joining me. Sweet. Cheers, guys. We'll catch you later.